Ladles and jelly spoons, burps and gurgles, my name is Johnbonne, number one source for no-do games, and I bid you a hearty welcome to this episode of Johnbonne's Journal, where I'm doing it on the microphone. And I'll have some gameplay footage that's probably not even relevant to the topic, but what the hell, it's something to watch in the background if you're really interested in that, or you could do something constructive like play video games. Today, I want to talk about loot boxes and my opinions on them, and really sort of talk about, I think, maybe even gambling addiction. Now, whether you consider loot boxes to be gambling, or they, video games can or can't cause a gambling addiction, it doesn't really matter to me as such. I mean, if you want to put it in the comments below, you can. I call it schmambling because it's not really gambling, but it kind of is in a way. I think a lot of gambling has skill, physics, psychology, maths and observation skills and things like that. Whereas I think loot boxes, being totally digital, they can be rigged in any way and nobody has to disclose it, unless of course this is in China, where it is a legal obligation to disclose the odds of getting certain contents, which I don't think is a bad thing, and I want to sort of talk about that later on in the video as well. However, I would like to begin with a bit of a story, talking about my first experiences with loot boxes in video games. This was in TF2. In Team Fortress 2, I was about 16 or 17. I think the game had gone free to play either on that year or the year after, and it was about Christmas time as well. So I had a fair bit of money in my account. I was doing college full time at the time, and I was really into Team Fortress 2. I was about to say Fallout 2 for some reason. There were a lot of Christmas crates being released at the time. Whenever you respawn in the game, you have a chance of getting an item. And I was getting a lot of Christmas crates, and I couldn't trade them with other people because everyone was getting these crates. They had no use for them. So what was really in demand was keys. And I was really big on buying keys. I was big on buying anything in TF2. I mean, this was in a time when I was pre-ordering so many games, like Total War Shogun 2, just to get the hats, just to get the genuine quality items. I remember in Rift, I pre-ordered Rift just to get the first ever genuine quality items in TF2. And that's something I've noticed now. It's like about how so many games have loot qualities, just so they can sell you on it. Like, it's like back then, like it was a new thing, like genuine. It was better somehow. I don't know how, but it was rarer because it was like you didn't just craft it. You'd bought a game for it, and I wanted to show that off, And I've still got my original Rift items, so I am to an extent quite proud of those, although I'm not particularly sure why. Anyway, I'm going too far off topic. So I had bought a lot of these keys, and not once did Valve, sort of stop me from paying for them. And I think this is something that Valve needs to do. Maybe say that, maybe sort of stop spending on your account after a certain amount because they want to make sure you're not a bot or anything like that. My bank didn't stop me from withdrawing money. And it wasn't until I got home from my grandparents after that Christmas holiday that I received a phone call from the bank telling me that my account was £400 overdraft. And basically that meant that I'd taken too much money I'd borrowed too much money from the bank because my account was empty, but I kept on spending money. And Valve kept authorizing these payments. So what happened was I had to take money out of my savings to put it, to pay back the bank. And I also changed a few things on my account, basically to make sure that the bank would then deny any request for money if I didn't have any money in my account. So that's really good. Now, the reason why I'm telling this story is because it was such a sudden shock to me that I was really, really glad that it happened, actually. Because, as I say, because it was so sudden, I managed to kick the habit almost immediately. My interest in TF2 had died considerably, and I'm not blaming Valve or TF2 or even my bank for this or anything like that. Again, I was away, so they couldn't have really contacted me for that. But my interest in the game had died considerably, and I think it's honestly because of the loot. It could just be because of how the characters have strayed from their archetypes because of all the available weapons and things like that. But I think it is mostly down to the loot. I think it's because I don't get any joy of opening crates anymore. I don't get as many items as I used to, so maybe I'm not interested in that anymore. I don't know, but I don't play it as much. And it's a shame as well, because I used to love TF2. But alas, not anymore. But why was I buying these keys to loot crates in the first place? I honestly don't think it was because of the loot. I mean, the loot at the time wasn't very interesting. I'm sure it's got a lot better now, but at the time, for all the money I was spending on keys, I could have just traded for individual items. But I didn't. The reason why I was doing it, I honestly believe, was because of the dopamine hit that I got from opening the crates. And it wasn't just opening the crates, it was the clanking of the chains, it was the twisting of the key in the lock, it was the breaking of the wood. Okay, this is actually starting to sound like The Majesty of Rock by Spinal Tap. And all that you can do is just surrender. But my point is that I wanted all those sounds, and I've sort of looked at several songs' music theory and trying to understand why those songs work so well. Like, for example, look at Resonance by Home. I think the song was made specifically so, like, to hit all the right notes in your brain, and in a certain sequence it sounds really nostalgic, and it reminds you of, I don't know, the 80s or the 90s, and it does something to you that makes you feel really good, you know? And I think that's what musicians are starting to do with loot boxes. I know it's a bit of a conspiracy theory kind of thing, it's quite crazy, but I mean, when you think about how far these companies will go to get your money, it's not so crazy, you know, when people actually sort of feel like they're getting an addiction, when they feel like they're losing control over their game. Maybe these companies do have that kind of control. Maybe they will go that far to get more money. Like, don't forget, Call of Duty has made billions off its microtransactions. It's not so hard to believe that they can afford to pay people to make the perfect jingle, you know, or the perfect animation for their loot boxes. Loot boxes now have like smoke, glitter, gold, you know, gems, gold bars, platinum, confetti shooting all over the place to make you feel like it's something special. And this is why I think that maybe people need the odds displayed, so they so they feel more comfortable with paying for these things. Now, I've heard people say that if they display the odds, people won't buy them because they don't feel so good about their purchase. And I have to say that, look, if your odds are so appalling that when people look at them they're not going to bother, maybe change your odds, maybe go with another monetization method, maybe just don't do the sort of loot chesting at all. Make your odds encouraging, or at least just be honest. The reason why I subscribe to Humble monthly a lot is because I appreciate Humble's trust. They're sort of them being upfront with me. They're saying that, yeah, okay, we're not going to reveal the contents of this loot box, but we will show you what you can get if you pay now, and you can play it right now. And not only that, but there may be an exclusive game, there's maybe some other stuff, some other cool goodies, like a comic book series that they've got going on that's exclusive to them. They've got Humble Originals, all these kind of things, really cool. And all the games in that box cost more than the $12 or £7 that you'd pay if you were to go on any other site, you know? So yeah, it actually works out it works out way better. So I'm okay with that. And also, like, 10% or 5% of your money goes to the charity as well. So, you know, I'd buy more loot boxes if they went to charity. It's why I like buying pets and mounts in World of Warcraft if they go to a charity, because it's to a good cause. It's not lining this company's pockets. And don't get me wrong, I really want to support developers, but I don't think microtransaction money goes to developers. If it does, I'd love to know that. But then again, this is like a case-by-case basis thing, you know? It's like, yeah, it might go to, the microtransaction money might go to one developer team, but, like, for example, it might go to Monolith. If you're paying Warner Brothers for the microtransactions, well, Monolith have already been paid a wage. Are they going to get royalties? I doubt it very much. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the odds, and I'm glad that it's a legal obligation in China, and I think it should be a legal obligation. I think we should be required to state the odds, so then people can maybe wean themselves off. I think maybe have things like GambleAware notices, and, you know, gamble responsibly, or Schmamble, as I like to call it, SchmambleAware. I mean, like, in fact, this is. I don't want to forget this. This is what reminded me why I was addicted to TF2 microtransactions. There is an advert in the UK for GambleAware. It plays a lot on YouTube, and I love it. And it's got this it's like this Ben Kingsley performance. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you've seen Sexy Beast, this guy acts like Ben Kingsley, and he's like playing the role of a slot machine. He's just standing there tempting this guy, taunting, flirting, whatever, to get this guy to pay for the slot machine. And when he clicks his neck, just like sort of stretch it. You, like, instead of like the bone clicking, you can hear like the sort of the chimes of a fruit machine.
Is that what you want? They all think you're a loser. I don't. I don't think you're a loser. You're my number one.
And I love that, and I love that sound, and that's what made me realize maybe I've got an addiction to gambling, because I want to hear those sounds. I want to hear the coins fall into the tray and all this kind of thing. And I think that's maybe something we should have in video games, that now we've got all those common things. We've got the chimes, we've got all the bells and whistles, we've got all the colours, all the spinning sliders, all this kind of thing. I think maybe now something needs to be done. But unfortunately, like with digital content, I think it's a lot harder to regulate, because, well, the house can change the odds at any time, and they don't have to disclose it at the moment, you know? It's like in Fortnite, the rarity of an item can go up or down, and the devs don't have to say that. They don't have to patch it in. They don't have to put it in the patch notes. They don't have to make send an email out or anything like that. They don't have to inform any government authorities. They don't have to tell the Federal Gaming Commission or whatever that they've done something to their game. You know, and I think that's something that could do with changing, just so then people can wean themselves off, and I think just increase a bit of trust between people, you know. So then you don't have children spending tens of thousands of dollars, or Apple getting sued because of these things, or someone spending $2 million and then leading a boycott, for example. I must admit, I thought I had more talking points than I originally did, but I don't really want to echo too many people, and, you know, I want to keep my thoughts to as original and to my own experiences as I possibly can. So I'm just going to wrap up towards the end now, and just ask the question: how would you guys feel if the government had to get involved in microtransactions or loot boxes in general? So would you, let's say you were in charge of them, would you impose age restrictions? Would you maybe have limits on how much people can spend per day, or would you just make it an option so people can do that, so they can so people can set how much money they can spend on these things, so they don't lose track of how much they've spent, you know? Or would you outlaw them entirely? Would you go back to the all microtransaction model? What are your feelings on microtransactions in general? That's what I'd like to know. I would like to end on a little bit of an end note here, though. I don't think anyone's the winner when it comes to loot boxes. At least, I think it's the shareholders that win. When someone tells me they've spent $3,000 on Fortnite and they want a refund, that just tells me that there's a shareholder out there probably getting about $3 right there, or maybe $30 or something like that from that single person. And I imagine how many suckers out there have fell for that, you know? And how much money has been made off my purchases alone, you know? How much money Valve has taken, and then how much money the shareholders are taking from Valve, you know, or Activision. And don't forget, these microtransactions are often in games that may not even be around for that long. It's like, how many people are going to be playing Middle-earth Shadow of War's online mode? You might have the most powerful orcs in the game, but if there's only one other person who's just started and they don't plan on playing the multiplayer for very long, what's the point? Multiplayer games now especially are dying left and right. Not every game can be Overwatch. There's only so many that can be like Battleborn that get that recognition several years after launch. You know, that they can stagnate for so long and still somehow remain in the news. You know? So that's just really my thoughts on loot boxes. I don't really like them. I would much rather have the microtransaction model of old, but even then, that's implying that like microtransactions are a necessary evil. And I don't believe they are. I'll put a link to my article on Hub Pages called Microtransactions Are Not a Necessary Evil in the description below. And there you'll be able to see my thoughts on those. Generally, I don't think microtransactions are necessary. I think DLC is sort of a way to go if you have to monetize. Otherwise, maybe let people support you by, I don't know, having a donate button, adverts if you have to. Go back to that, you know, instead of, you know, having both microtransactions and adverts, maybe mobile games. You know, maybe just offering, if people don't have the time to play the game, don't offer them loot boxes, offer them different difficulty options, like going back to Middle-earth Shadow of War, you know, instead of like maybe allow people to skip the intel phase, maybe allow people to choose how many weaknesses an Urk has, so it makes it easier to kill, so it saves more time, rather than just letting people flat out buy Urks. Is that not a good idea? I don't know. I'm going to get off now. Thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you ever so much for watching. I do apologise for the rambling. I do apologise I didn't really cover what I really wanted to cover. But hey, I got a funny title out of this video. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant day now. Ta-ta for now.